audiences love your work, and I'm David Kadavy's voice double. While David is on a break, I'm reaching back into the archives. The good news is that the more I listen to David's voice, the better I become at emulating him. 12 years ago, David met Rob Hunter on Craigslist. They had both left their jobs at the same time. They were both determined to make it. So David and Rob spent several months wandering from cafe to cafe in San Francisco. They put in 12-hour days. Not making a dime, David says it was one of the most exciting times of his life. Today, David has this podcast, best-selling books, and lives in South America. Today, Rob is one half of Focused Apps, makers of hit EOS games including Hit Tennis and Emoji, which has more than 40 million downloads. Here's David Kadavy and Rob Hunter. Let's start with how it was that we met. Do you remember?
Yeah, I definitely remember us sitting down at a cafe in the Mission District of San Francisco. But you posted to Craigslist, and I responded. You were looking for, I think, a co-founder, right, or someone to help you out, or a programmer, something along those lines.
Yeah, I was looking it up the other day. I mean, it was more than 10 years ago. I think it was like possible technical co-founder or app developer, Facebook app developer, or possible technical co-founder. I posted up there. Yeah.
Nice.
And you responded to that?
Yeah. And I wasn't that guy, or at least I didn't think I was. But I think I was still working with my friend Jesse at the time. And we were making this, we wanted to do a web app that would let you make web apps. And I thought, oh, like a good test would be this Craigslist guy who turned out to be you. And if our app could be used to help him make whatever Facebook app he wants to make, that'd be great. So I met you down in the Mission.
Yeah, now I'm starting to vaguely remember that because I was building a Facebook app, and my Facebook app was like a Craigslist for Facebook. I think Facebook had just launched Marketplace, and it was bad, not satisfactory to me. And so I was trying to build a Craigslist that would use your social connections. That was back when everybody was trying to make Facebook apps. And then so I think I remember talking to you about using your app to build my Facebook app, right?
Yeah.
But then I was trying to pitch you to try to get you to be my technical co-founder.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think I sold you on using our product. Probably had something to do with the fact that our product was vaporware. I don't think it even ran, and it certainly didn't make Facebook apps. So if I wrote to you in that email like, hey, our software does that, it was only like our software could do that, maybe.
And how did you end up at this point where you were trolling around Craigslist looking for people to work with?
Yeah, I was working at a company in Silicon Valley, kind of an enterprise software company, and I was a programmer there for almost 3 years. And I left my job in, I think it was July 2007, and I didn't leave under bad terms or anything. It was all, no bridges burned. And in fact, I would say I was actually like a little bummed, like I was going to miss the place. It wasn't, I was so fed up with it, but I think that helped me realize that the decision was right, because I still wanted to do it. And what I wanted to do was do my own company. So I was working with another guy, a friend from college at the time, and we wanted to make, like I said, a web app for making web apps.
And I think you left around July 2017, right? Or 2007. 2007,
exactly. Yeah. So that's, 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago at this point.
Yeah. And I got fired July 2007. And the moment that it happened, I was like, oh, this is great. I've been waiting for this.
Okay. So you had a different reaction or a different circumstance. Was it really like a firing? Were you like stealing notebook paper or copy paper?
No, I don't actually know exactly. We never really discussed it, which is kind of a weird thing. I guess I kind of saw it as like, I'm working at startups, and you're going to work at a startup for 8 months and something's going to happen. And I mean, actually, not too long after I left, then they like fired almost everybody, and that company's not around anymore. So,
right.
But yeah, I was certainly had grown to not enjoy it very much, but I just didn't have the guts to quit. And then when I had my opportunity, it was instantaneous. I said to my boss, like, oh, thank you. July 17th, 2007 is going to be a special day in my life. And then I went and I had like $130K in stock at the time, which is kind of absurd because I had just been putting away money, and then it was in Google and Apple. And so that worked out well, but it kind of took that much money for me to finally feel like, oh, okay, yeah, I can buy myself a year. So I cashed out $40,000 in stock and just said, okay, I'm just going to try stuff out. I'm not going to freelance or anything. So that's how I ended up there.
Did you have visions, like concrete vision? Like, did you know, like on day one, or like as you're, I don't know, walking home from this office with your little cardboard box and your desk plant or whatever it was, were you like, I know what I'm going to do? Or were you thinking like, gosh, I wonder what I'm going to do? I mean, like specific project wise.
All that I knew was that I wanted to follow what I was curious about and just follow those things, make things based off of it, and see what happens, and then double down on the things that were working. I wanted to, I guess my main mission was, I woke up that first morning, I had a whole day ahead of me. I could do whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
But I had gotten so burned out working for other people that I had forgotten like what it was like to feel curious about something and feel interested in it. So my idea was just fill up as much of my time as I can with something that I'm curious about, because that'll keep me from playing Guitar Hero all day.
Okay.
So that was kind of my vision. I mean, I think that I had grandiose visions of like, I'm going to be a billionaire and all this stuff, but I didn't have any possible like plan of exactly how that was going to happen, except for that I was going to build an app and maybe raise some money and something would happen. So, but how about you?
I had a pretty clear idea, I think, because we actually applied to Y Combinator. So speaking of funding, we applied to Y Combinator, and it wasn't even the first time. This might have been like the second time applying. I applied kind of while I had the job, hoping, we'd get in, and then I could quit the job. And I'd had maybe that's analogous to your safety net. You had your Google and Apple stock that made you feel okay about it. And I was like, I'll get this funding, and that'll be this kind of validation, and it won't be such a weird thing to leave, a job you like. And we didn't get in. Again, I think for the second time, didn't get into Y Combinator. But I was like, I think we should leave, or I should leave anyway. I think I've applied to Y Combinator for 4 times and been rejected 4 times. And I think 3 of them were for this web app, for making web app ideas. It's possible it was a 2 and 2 kind of deal, but I actually think I was rejected 3 times for this.
Now, when you got rejected from Y Combinator, every single time, in your mind, were you like, yeah, I got this? I've sort of purposefully gone into things that I have a pretty good idea that I'm going to fail at. So for example, the first time that I pitched to South by Southwest, I was like, I don't think I have a very good idea, but I'm going to go through the process so that I can see the process in my mind. And then maybe next year I'll be that much better at applying for it and at making the decisions necessary to do a better job. And so the next year I tried it. I still didn't get accepted right away, but I got a book deal, which then got me speaking slots at South by Southwest. Yeah,
that sounds like a really good attitude, and I'm not sure I had that myself. I think I did. I think I was confident I could at least make it through or have a good application, but in retrospect, it might have just been like I was good at writing the application, but that's not the same thing as making a company. And so I think when we got to the interview phase, I think maybe the fact that we weren't ready, or that we didn't have the right idea, or maybe we weren't even the right team with a different idea, whatever it was, I think that came through now. So maybe I was a little overconfident. I mean, it was definitely disappointing each time.
Did that get you down, getting rejected from Y Combinator 4 times?
Yes. Definitely. I think I'm pretty good at, I think I'm pretty good about like recovering, like pretty quickly. Like I remember having in Boston the first time we got rejected. I do remember that because we flew to Boston from Northern California, and we stayed at his brother's place, and we're kind of practicing. We had kind of totally changed the way we were going to pitch it the night before. But I remember I was going to say about being, getting over it the next day. We kind of had, we were at some like coffee place chatting about it, and we were still pumped about it, and like, well, I'll still do it.
So going back to us sitting and I think it was Mission Creek Coffee, which is apparently no longer in business. It was on Valencia. And we're both sitting there I'm trying to get you to be my technical co-founder. I think you're trying to build my app or something like that. And you had been rejected from Y Combinator, which I guess we haven't clarified for people who don't know. It's a incubator program. They give you money and then they give you a lot of mentorship and everything.
Yeah.
But you decided to quit your job anyway. So what were you seeing as your goals and options at that time, and how were you surviving? Yeah,
I had some money too. Maybe some ballpark. For some reason, I remember the amount $50,000, but I honestly don't remember if that was like, if I had that in some stocks or if I was trying to save some of that too. But I had a nest egg. I worked at it, like I said, a nice job. So I had that kind of like financial kind of safety net, and I think I had just always, I would say since college, I was going to start my own company at some point. And I kind of tried something, kind of a half-assed try in grad school. At the end of grad school, I left my PhD program after I got the master's to start a company with a friend. I was definitely excited when I left, even though we had just gotten rejected. I was like, okay, whatever. And by the time I met you, I don't know that I knew it at the time, but I think I was close to the end of the idea that I was trying to sell you on, or to get you to use our software. I was probably pretty close to switching over to trying out some iPhone stuff. I don't think I was too nervous. I mean, that might be a surprising statement, but I think I just was comfortable with my kind of support network of family, the fact that I was in a field. I kind of just got lucky with the computer science thing, that it's a field that pays well. It's like I started as a little kid programming basic stuff, and I'm certain I would have done this no matter what. It just happened that it's a thing that pays well. So I was like, I can always go back to a job, and in fact, I liked my job. At least I told myself that. I think it's true for the most part. So I think I was okay. I think I was in a pretty good spot for the most part. There were some dark days.
Yeah, and you were thinking, okay, I can just go back to a job at any point.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I know my mindset at the time was, if somebody, I actually remember a friend of mine, she was like, yeah, you're going to get a job within 6 months. And kind of my gears started turning in my brain. I'm trying to think about cause and effect or whatever. It basically went in my mind like all the way to me like lying face down in a gutter, dead. and I was like, that's not going to happen.
Okay.
My mind was completely made up.
Okay. And so that probably was a motivator for you, I assume.
Yeah, there's certainly, I don't know. I think that you can do it either way. I think that those are two different styles of doing it. But I do think that, and it's 10 years later. Like, have I made it? Kind of. We can get into that.
Yeah, I do want to chat about that. But yeah, in some sense, you certainly have. Well, is it you have not gone back and got a, quote unquote real job, right? Since mid 2007, and I have not either.
I haven't even gone back to like consulting even. Yeah. So I'm doing fine. It's just I've been working for a couple of years on a couple of things that I have yet to really bear the fruit that they might. And I had some really good years in there, especially after Design for Hackers. But yeah, for me it was definitely I said to my friend after she said it to me, I looked at her, I said, I would rather be dead. And I meant it. I was pretty intense as far as like, this is what I'm going to do. I had made up my mind entirely. And who knows if certain events would have happened, I might have changed my mind, I guess. But in my mind, my mind was completely made up. There was no going back. And so I don't know whether that's the way to do it, but I didn't feel like I had a choice, really.
So can I ask then, do you feel, because I think the fact that I'm like, well, I could always do this is related to, the idea that, I feel like I can kind of get over stuff quick. It's like, like I'm pretty even keeled. Maybe I didn't fully commit to it. It has to be that way. Do you find that if something doesn't go your way, you can rebound pretty well? Or is it tougher because it's like, because of the I'd rather be dead mentality? Does that make sense?
I think during that period of time, I didn't necessarily have a lot of like crushing blows because I was doing so many different things. I had my eggs in so many baskets, so to speak, which might not have been the best strategy, but it was, like I said, I was trying to follow my curiosity. So if my curiosity was taking me a million different places, that was where I was going to go. And I was just going to trust that it was going to connect at some point in the future.
Yeah.
And so, like, for example, the Facebook app that I was building at the time, which was a Craigslist that uses your social connections through Facebook, uses a social graph. I ended up getting a developers/co-founder for it. We built the app. It was doing pretty well, but it relied upon these profile boxes that were on Facebook profiles at the time for like advertising the listings. I'm looking for a roommate. I'm selling my computer. I'm selling my car. And then one day Facebook just changed their algorithm, and I still have the picture of the usage graph. Like it was growing steadily. I had people asking me about it like, hey, that's going really viral and everything. And then it just was gone. Yeah. And we never fixed it. And I never felt like there was no moment of like, I really failed for that. I mean, I guess I've had that in the past, like a couple of years. Probably the biggest failure that I've experienced where I was like, wow, I really failed at this was a couple of years ago when I wrote a book proposal, and then it wasn't well received, but now I've revised it. It's taken me a year and a half or so, and we'll see how that goes now. But in any case, that book is getting written regardless. So like when people would ask me about failures, I wouldn't really know what to say because I didn't really view anything as a failure. I really viewed it as just a bunch of different experiments. So maybe that was something that protected me and that mentality of do or die.
I think that also might be a good strategy for just kind of getting started or just trying it. If this is just an experiment, why don't I just try it rather than like, this is a whole big like life mission quest startup, like, I don't know, break it down to smaller pieces kind of.
Yeah, I guess part of it was perhaps because like that app at the time, I did think it was going to be successful. I think I was pretty certain that it would be because I really committed to it for a while there, but I was trying other things at the time as well. But that wasn't my life's mission. My life's mission was to rediscover my curiosity, to follow it at all costs, to trust that what I learned along the way would eventually connect into something that was one of a kind or unusual that I would love doing it, but then I would just be making money during the day, doing things, filling up as much of my day as possible with a feeling of satisfaction. So that was my mission. So it didn't really matter to me how that was going to happen at that time.
Yeah, rediscovering your own curiosity at all costs. I like that. That's pretty awesome. What did you ever feel like you had made it, like a kind of a premature, mission accomplished kind of thing in the, let's say your it was through a friend, right? Is that the name? That's the name of the project, the startup.
That was the app. Yeah.
So did you at some point, like you're looking at the graph, before the screenshot you have where it started going down, where you're like, oh, I think I've made it. I think I'm done. Or I don't know if done's the right word, but something like that.
No, not really. I mean, I do remember one thing. It was that I told you this, that I think that before we met, and we haven't gotten to the part that we were basically meeting at a different cafe every day and working all day for almost a year after that moment. But I think leading up to that moment, That was the time when I decided I was going to change my schedule. And I basically, so that I wouldn't get distracted during the day, shifted everything. So I would start working at like 8 p.m. or something like that. And I would just stay up until 4 a.m. and then I would sleep until noon. And that way I would be working in the night when I wouldn't be getting emails. I wouldn't be on Facebook and all that stuff. So during that time, I was like you were saying about the Facebook API, I was learning everything I could about the Facebook API. And I wasn't a developer really. So I was building app specs. And so everything that I had to build within the app specs, and I basically had to describe this is how this app works. And here's the pieces from the API that you're going to use to do all these things. And that was a reconnection, not just with curiosity, but a reconnection with quality. I really had felt over the years that I had been forced to do things at kind of a breakneck speed because that's the way things seem to work at a lot of companies. Like people don't want to really take their time and do things really well. And so I got so much satisfaction out of just making that the most kick-ass spec doc that you've ever seen. That was just satisfying just to do something up to my own standard of quality at that point in time. That was what I just really wanted from that at the base level.
Yeah. And you were pitching a bunch of developers, and is that like the people responding to it? You're actually trying to get them to do it, like to hire someone or to partner with someone, right?
The guy that I ended up working with as kind of a co-founder, I paid him a little bit, but I mean, it was, I didn't realize, like, I remember going to dinner with him and telling him about the idea, and he had seen the specs and everything. And he just like really deliberately kind of folds his hands and tilts his head. And he's like, I'm interested in working on your project.
Oh.
Just like very seriously. And I guess I didn't realize at the time, he was an amazing developer. He works at Google now. I mean, he was working for a company that would get bought by Google. And I didn't realize like what an accomplishment it was to sort of recruit him and get him willing to work on it as a discount at the time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the dream, right? If you don't have that venture capital money to find that diamond before they know they're a diamond, right?
Yeah. So basically, after we met in over Craigslist at this cafe, then somehow we ended up getting into this pattern where I was going to a different cafe every day, and I would just text you, and then you would magically show up like 20 minutes later.
Yeah, I must have been to the Mission, but I feel like you showed me the like Mission like hipster coffee shop scene, which I've since not ashamed to say that's like my favorite place to work, like either the Mission or like something like that. I basically, in all the random cities I'm at in these days, I'll just look up the coffee shops on Yelp, click they have a new feature on Yelp where they categorize the photos by like interior or food shots. And I always go for interior just to kind of see, okay, do I see laptops? Like what does it look like? So you invented the term, I don't know, have you mentioned this officially, mo-working? I don't know if it really caught on more than between you and me, but that was the name for what we did, right? Mobile working.
It didn't catch on a lot. I mean, co-working was pretty new then. And then I just remember we just started a wiki that you and I think were the main contributors to, and we were just adding cafes, and our kind of criteria was, all right, is the atmosphere good? Is there Wi-Fi? Are there outlets?
Yeah.
Do they give you the stink eye if you sit there for a few hours?
Yeah, these are all critical. I would say the only thing that's changed now, all of it's relevant except the Wi-Fi. I don't usually worry about because I just do what's that called? Tethering if there's nothing easy.
Oddly, coffee wasn't one of the criteria. I don't drink coffee. I never have.
I never thought about that. You're right. It never occurred to me to rate the coffee. I actually started coffee at some point during this period. Now I drink probably too much coffee. Yeah.
So what were the other cafes we were going to? I think there was K-Tao, which is not there anymore. There was Cafe Petra, which is gone. Ritual, Ritual. That was the fancy hipster. Yeah, I was there maybe a month ago. Definitely still there. Maxwell's was I really like that. I got their egg and cheese bagels all the time.
So I guess I do order food.
And it kind of got to where I sort of got sensitive to, oh, what mood am I in? And fortunately, it seemed like you didn't care. But I would kind of be like, based upon the mood or whatever I wanted to work on, I would kind of choose the cafe. So if I really wanted to like get creative, maybe I'm writing a blog post or something like that, I would go to Cafe Triste in, if I'm saying that right, my Italian's not that great, in North Beach. And it was kind of like this Italian place. They had a good chai and it had like an artsy atmosphere. That was like the only place in North Beach I can remember. I would go all the way there just to go to that cafe.
I had one actually in North Beach. It was like, is it my white whale? Is that the expression? I don't know. Anyways, I'll explain and then you can tell me if I'm saying that right. But it was, I just had this vision that I would, once I was successful or once I had completed whatever goal I was going for, and it had to be something big, I would go to, it's a place that's unfortunate. It's now been purchased by Starbucks. I actually don't even think it exists anymore. I think they shut them all down. But anyway, my vision was to go and like not bring my computer and read a book. That would be my like, I made it kind of thing. I succeeded in life.
So you fantasized about going to this place in North Beach with a book without your computer, and that you would have made it when that happened, and then it never happened.
Right. It wouldn't be that doing that would be, I would choose as kind of a reward. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I made it. I'm feeling good.
Did you have a goal in mind that at the time at which you would allow yourself to go do that?
I don't know. I did make this spreadsheet chart, which was like, this was a few years down the road, which was like a 30-day window of averaged daily revenue. And I would have kind of like goals based on levels. You know, if you made $50 a day, I would get to do kind of like a reward, like a treat. One of them was a notebook. My business partner, Mark, always makes fun of, he brings this up fairly often. Like, like if something good happens, like, I guess you get to buy a notebook now, because he thought that was so silly. But that was one. It's these Field Notes notebooks. I don't know if you know the brand, but they're like really small and light. And it's the only kind of notebook I use pretty much.
And you would get to buy one if you reached.
I would get to buy one, or like a pack. I think they come in 3, so a pack.
I do remember very often we would talk about the money problem. Would be that neither of us were making any money at all, I'm pretty sure. And then so it was the money problem we would talk about. All right, well, how are we going to get? I think my thing was that I wanted more time and space. I wanted some way to make money with as little time as possible. I think I had read the 4-hour work week at that point.
Okay.
And with little time as possible so that I would have the space to then keep following my curiosity, because I realized it was going to take a long time before that would pay off.
Yeah, I think very similar with me. And I also had read the, I don't, whenever that came out, I think I totally was like, I think it like his marketing worked like just the way it was supposed to, him being Tim Ferriss, that I think I literally saw a Google ad and that title spoke to me. And I've learned since then that he like tested that title, you know.
Well, yeah, I remember. So with the 4-hour work week, it was a friend lent me that book, and it must have been August 2007 or so. It was like after I was kind of deciding how I was going to spend my time and everything. And so my friend lent me that book, and it totally changed. It's funny. This is the way that things work with the way that creator models work. Tim Ferriss has maybe gotten. I never bought the book really, so he changed my life. I made hundreds of thousands of dollars based off of his advice, and he's gotten like $4 from me over the last 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, you're like, I feel like you're a, I don't know what they call it. Yeah, I mean, like you should be a, what do they call that? Like a like a perfect example of a
case study.
There we go. Yeah.
He wants the people that are making $100K a month or something, I think is what he's going for. But I've submitted to be a case study, I think probably multiple times, but no cigar. So the money problem. The money problem,
right. And solving the money problem, right?
Yeah. So how did you go about solving the money problem?
Yeah, well, I think that's so that question kind of assumes that I have, right? Or you're saying attempt to solve the money problem. I don't feel like I've solved it, but I've definitely made some headway. I've made headway in ways that.
What would be solving the money problem for you?
That's a good question. I think part of the problem might be, if it is a problem, is that I have not defined that specifically, but in a very general sense, it's similar to what you were saying about being able to pursue, follow your creativity. I think many people have goals of like retiring on the beach. And while I like beaches, retirement I don't know, that never, I'm sure I might change my opinion when I'm 60 or 70 or something like that. But that is not a goal of mine. But not having to work in a particular way or even at all, even though I suspect I would choose to, is kind of the thing. So the flexibility that money would give, or that solving the money problem, to use that phrase, is what I'd want.
How did you begin to try to solve the money problem?
I think not in a very specific way. I think I probably did zero of the steps that may have been outlined in a 4-hour work week. I think there's maybe you could say there's 2 ways that come to mind to do it. There's the start kind of a big ambitious project that isn't itself focused on making money. It's kind of the VC model, or one of them, where you're just trying to make something big and then you can figure out how to make money later, like Facebook did. And, that's kind of what Scribular was, the web app. Oh, sorry, I'm getting confused. That's actually what both the web app for making web apps, which I think was called Fractal App, and Scribular, which was the leaving location-based notes. Both of those didn't have clear monetization plans, but I imagined if, with enough usage, I could. Then I eventually teamed up with Mark, my current business partner, and we started consulting. And then after we did that, we started working on our own apps and eventually started making revenue, recurring daily revenue, passive, or, we can talk about if there's even such a thing as passive income, but certainly through some definition, passive income. And that's when it started. So now that I've said that and thinking about what I've said, I don't think I was very good about okay, I want to solve this money problem. How do I do that? I did it a very back-asswards way, or attempted it. Were you more concrete? Did you have okay, this is what I can do? Were you okay, I'm going to start by making this project, which is going to give me passive income so that I can do the next thing and increase the passive income or something like that?
To an extent, but not in a, I don't know. I kind of get the sense that maybe for you, that if somebody would have pointed in an idea for you and you could, and been do this, and then after 6 months, you're going to make X dollars, and you could probably just do it. I was not capable of that. To me, it was still the whole curiosity thing. I had to have something that would motivate me, that I was motivated to do, because that was that is what I had reached the end of my rope as far as there was no other way I could operate. I had tried working for other people, and then it's just you're working somebody else's initiative. Maybe you don't feel like doing this thing.
Right.
And so for me, it was very much try a lot of different things, try things that have a chance to make the passive money, and then but keep checking in on it. So I had so many different projects going on at the time. I had the dating app, the dating blog, messing around with Mo working. I had a roommate meetup that I would run, which actually led to Through a Friend, which was the Facebook app that I did. I was trying to make a GTD markup language, which wasn't necessarily a business, but I have some mock-ups of productivity apps that I had tried. And I would set up blogs here and there just anytime I had an idea. And then I would switch around from these different things and just check in with them every once in a while. So eventually what happened was about after a year of wandering around, I left and went to Chicago. I could get cheaper rent. I could get my own apartment. I could get a 2-bedroom apartment for the price of the room that I was crammed in San Francisco. And my strategy I have drawings of this, even of my drawings of my plan. It was like, okay, I'm going to bill 10 hours a week of freelance. That's my goal. Bill 10 hours a week of freelance. And then the rest of the time I'm going to spend on passive revenue. And hopefully that passive revenue will pick up. And at that point in time, I'll be more free to follow the things that I was curious about. And so what happened was that as soon as I moved to Chicago, I almost instantly, somebody from Odesk, which is now Upwork, like the company, I wasn't like freelancing for Upwork. Somebody contacted me. Great timing, really pretty fortunate, pretty lucky. And they basically needed about 10 hours a week. And I was charging, I think, $100 an hour. And then the rest of the time, I would just tinker around, just trying to find where there was money in the things I already had. Like I already had a blog where I had a page about like a cyst that you get in your lip called a mucocele.
Okay.
That I was getting like 20,000 visits a month, and everybody needed $1,000 surgery. And so I was like calling oral surgeons to try to sell them ads, but none of them would do it. And I just like couldn't squeeze any money out of that. And then I think the first passive money that I really started making, which was, well after I started the online dating blog, was a blog post I'd written that was how to transfer your iTunes library from one computer to another. And I had all the instructions laid out. I was getting a ton of traffic on it. I don't know, 17,000, 20,000 visits a month on just this one page. And it was just a matter of kind of poking around and asking people like, what do I do? How do I, how can I make money off of this asset that I have? And somebody said, try affiliate software. Sure enough, there was affiliate software that transferred an iTunes library from one computer to another. And so I signed up for the affiliate program. I just put a direct link from the blog post to the checkout cart, didn't make a landing page or anything. I was just like, here, the instructions are here, but if you want to pay for software that helps you, do that here. And then I left. I went on a date, came back 3 hours later, had an email that was like, you just made $26. And that was the moment. I mean, a few days went by. I thought my friends were playing a prank on me or something. And that was the moment I started making any passive revenue. And then I believe that's when, I went to visit San Francisco, and we met at Ritual Roasters. Okay. And had a conversation where, I got to where I was making a couple thousand a month off of that iTunes transfer.
Oh, I 100% remember this. Yeah. No, it was big because I didn't, a couple thousand, I didn't remember the number, but it was basically like rent and food, or that's the way I remember it. Like that was like, it was almost like a tipping point where your passive income was actually like supporting you. And so, if it continued, you could do this indefinitely, which is huge,
And where were you at that point? I kind of felt like that was when we sat down and had coffee, that it was sort of like a, hey, like we kind of made it.
Right,
like,
right.
Sure, we ate shit for 6 months or a year, but now both of us are making money.
Well, but what year was this? And then I can tell you kind of where I was.
2008. I know that by like February 2010, I was maybe making $2,200 a month off the iTunes thing.
Okay, so maybe that was it. That's right around we were about to release Hit Tennis. But anyway, I was before that, like 2008, end of that. I was just about to meet Mark, my business partner, and I took a screenshot of my checking account, and it was like 38 cents. In my mind, I saved $50,000. I don't think I went through $50,000 that quick. But anyway, the point is I did not have very much money. But I remember like, it wasn't like a dark day so much, I think, because I was like, okay, I'll figure this out. I think I did a Craigslist gig to kind of get some cash. But I eventually ran into Mark at a meetup, and we kind of hit it off and just started consulting. He had this client and he felt like he needed help. Everyone was just as much as an expert of, iPhone development. You couldn't possibly have 10 years experience because it just started, 6 months ago. And so we were on the forefront of that. And so that was that was just like easy pickings. Like we always like, at some point for our consulting business, we'll have to do like a marketing push where we contact everyone on LinkedIn that we know to see, but we just never did that because we always had like, something in the queue, someone who contacted us. It was just a kind of lucky time to do that. But I think, probably when you and I met that one time and like we were feeling pretty good, was maybe after Hit Tennis 2, which was kind of our first big app that kind of took off and was like, good amount of income. And it was pretty exciting. But I also just thought of something that there's, I haven't always, I think we probably were thinking like, oh yeah, we kind of made it, but it's a tough business, because it's constantly going up and down, and there have been I think I asked you earlier if you felt like you'd made it with this one part through a friend, and I think I asked that because there have been definite times when I was like, oh, I think I've made it, and then it becomes clear, a few months later, like, I was just at like a local peak or something.
So basically you and Mark started consulting and then also started building your own games and stuff.
Yeah, it was a while after we started consulting, but yeah, Mark, I really did not have the vision of that, but Mark, we were at kind of the coffee place thread. We were at Axis. I think it's called Axis Cafe. Does that sound right? I might have that name wrong. It's in the Mission, of course. And it's kind of a restaurant coffee place. But anyways, it's another one in kind of Mission Potrero area. And we were there and he was like, hey, I think we should turn my tennis iPhone kind of demo app that he had made. He said he wanted to make it free and turn it into a full game and kind of bring it into the company. And I said, sure, let's do it. And that turned out to be a huge, very, very good idea because it allowed us to kind of turn down our consulting, eventually totally stop it, and start doing just our own apps, making their income full time.
How long of a transition was that before you could get down with the consulting?
Yeah, I think it wasn't, it might have been a year, but so it wasn't like an overnight thing. There was one sort of overnight successful moment where the app went to number 2 free app in the whole store, US. And that's, so we were getting just tons of downloads, but we didn't put any. Yeah.
So it was a free app and people could buy power-ups.
Exactly. Yeah. In the case of Hit Tennis 2, and it was called 2, it was really the first one. Hit Tennis 1 was in the store. Mark made it all himself, but it really was more of a demo app, just the kind of proof of concept. And yeah, freemium, they call it. So most players just play for free, enjoy themselves. I'm kind of that style of player myself, but some people kind of want to spend money to like get extra stuff, and you could buy energy drinks in the app. But when it went to number 2 in the App Store, we were actually at a conference, a small iPhone conference, but we were, it's kind of a fun, like ego stroking wise, kind of a fun time to be number 2 in the app store. We're like, hey, look at us. And the problem was we had not yet implemented anything you could buy. There were no energy drinks, and we had not yet implemented ads. So we were getting, thousands, I don't remember, but a lot of downloads per day. I think we got like 1 million in like a week or 2 or something like that, downloads. And we had no way of making money off those people. So it took off at some point a little faster than we thought. And I remember talking to this one guy at the conference. He's like, you guys should go up we would rent a hotel room for the conference. They're like, you should just go to the hotel room right now and like implement ads at least. Like, this is crazy. So we went up, and I think we stayed up and tried to get ads working and try to ship it. But Apple took a long time. At that point, you couldn't it wasn't a couple days. It was sometimes like a week or 2, maybe 2 weeks to get an app approved. And I don't remember I don't think we were at number 2 by the time we did. But anyways, we still, it settled down, and then we kept working at it, and got the revenue.
Well, that had to at least give you the confidence to do all the work that would be necessary to make it paid and put all the energy drinks and all that stuff in there. Because otherwise, you have this game, maybe it's not that popular. You do all these things to make it monetizable, but then it never pays off.
Yep.
it's a lot easier if you already have a bunch of users.
I think that's totally right. And I think it's with the freemium model, other than the way that I think it in the app world, I think it tends to work as it does in other areas. But I think having a bunch of users, because people like free stuff. And so over the years, it does seem like we've been pretty good at finding apps we could make where we could get a good number of users. The question has been like, of course, retaining them and can you get some of them to pay for stuff? But when you have a bunch of users, thousands of people using the app, it's kind of just like a more fun position to be from. It's like, oh, we can try this. And then suddenly 1,000 people, or thousands of people could be using it. We could see if it looks like a promising way to go.
It's funny when you were talking about how like nobody was an expert on iPhone development at the time because it was brand new. It's funny how there's these opportunities that come around every once in a while. Like for me, when I started working on the Facebook app, everybody was working on Facebook apps. Facebook was kind of like, make Facebook apps. And it seemed like they were going to use it as a way to see like, oh, what's good. And then they can kind of promote what's good. But it seems like what they did was just have this sort of gold rush thing and then kind of said, this didn't work out.
No, I think that's totally right. It was like a gold rush. And then there was a little bit of gold for the people who happened to get there, right?
But iOS development turned out the other way.
It became like a thing. Now, I think it's hard to see. Yeah, very much. I think it turned the other way. And they have been pretty good about only kind of extending. It really comes down to that notification change, right? There were a few changes that Facebook did that I think really like crippled the app. So the profile one you mentioned, like you couldn't be on the profile page, I think it was. And I think Apple has kind of only added to the things developers could do because it started like when it launched, you couldn't even write native apps. You had to do them through a web app and they let you have an icon, but that's it. And then they gave you full access or pretty much full access to the native stuff. And then they kept adding stuff to the developer. So yeah, it's done pretty well. Now that it used to be, I think, talking about the gold rush, I think there still are some of those aspects where there was a while where a lot of people, not me, but there were a lot of just like indie solo or very small teams like making a lot of money in the early days. They just happened to hit it right, And I think a bunch of those were like pretty gimmicky, and I think people are now used to their iPhone. It's kind of just become a part of it that those gimmicks don't work as often.
Based upon our digging into the past and remembering everything that we did during our Wander year, what would you say was the final message to wrap up our conversation today?
Jeez. A Wander year is a great way of saying it because for me, and I do think you were much more directed at doing the things, but even the great David Kadavy, I think we really were both wandering. And the trick is try a bunch of stuff. And just like this conversation here, it's like I've forgotten about all these things that that you did, that I did, and it's like wow, there was a lot of stuff in there. It wasn't for me as simple as just we made a tennis game and an emoji game. It was way, way more than that. And I'm not sure you can plan for that other than just keep trying stuff.
I think that's an astute observation. I also think that like if you have the mentality that you're gonna just go do something and it's gonna work, that can actually prevent you from starting in the first place. So I think having the mentality that there's always tomorrow, there's always more that you're going to do, that it kind of reduces that starting resistance.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. This has been a lot of fun. Where can people get more of you?
I don't have a book. I don't have a blog. I've been thinking about getting a blog, but they can find me at you've made fun of this Twitter handle before, David, but they can find me at Vegas Hacker.
Thanks for coming. Is Love Your Work helping you find your unique creative voice? Does it bring you the inspiration and motivation you need to become the creator and human you want to be? If so, please be a part of making this a special and nourishing and thoughtful show. Support the show on Patreon. You'll be an even bigger part of this show than you already are. If you contribute just a coffee a month, you'll be helping support the hosting and production of Love Your Work. Everyone has some unique creative gift to offer the world. Together, we can give people the tools they need to bring that work into the world. The world will be better off for it. Visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/Kadavy. This is a different kind of model for supporting the work that you love. The choice is yours. Vote with your dollars, put your money where your mind is, and keep Love Your Work going. Visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/Kadavy. As a thank you, you'll get early access, bonus content, and a discount on Love Your Work merchandise. Learn more at patreon.com/Kadavy. That's patreon.com/KA, D as in David, A, V as in Victor, Y. And if you can't support the show financially, and you've listened to at least 3 episodes, can you do me a favor? Write a review on Apple Podcasts. You can consider it your donation to help support the show. Love Your Work is brought to you in part by our top Patreon supporters, such as Jeffrey Mason. This has been Love Your Work, and I'm David Kadavy. The theme music for this show is At Sea by Dorena from the album About Everything and More by arrangement with Deep Elm Records at deepelm.com. Love Your Work is a production of Kadavy Inc.